Chapter 1 of Vicky Van by Carolyn Wells. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Celine Major. 1. Vicky Van. Victoria Van Allen was the name she signed to her letters and to her checks, but Vicky Van, as her friends called her, was signed all over her captivating personality from the top of her dainty tossing head to the tips of her dainty dancing feet. I liked her from the first, and if her small and earlies were said to be so called because they were timed by the small and early numerals on the clock dial, and if her little bridge games kept in active circulation a goodly share of our country's legal tender, those things are not crimes. I lived in one of the polite sections of New York City, up among the East Sixties, and at the insistence of my sister and aunt, who lived with me, our home was near enough the great boulevard to be designated by that enviable phrase, just off Fifth Avenue. We were on the north side of the street, and nearer to the avenue on the south side was the home of Vicky Van. Before I knew the girl I saw her a few times at long intervals on the steps of her house, or entering her little car, and half-consciously I noted her charm and her evident zest of life. Later, when a club friend offered to take me there to call, I accepted gladly, and as I have said, I liked her from the first. And yet I never said much about her to my sister. I am in a way responsible for Winnie, and, too, she's too young to go where they play bridge for money. Little Fadley prize bags or gift shop novelties are her stakes. Also, Aunt Lucy, who helps me to look after Win, wouldn't quite understand the atmosphere at Vicky's. Not exactly bohemian, and yet I suppose it did represent one compartment of that handy box of a term. But I'm going to tell you right now about a party I went to there, and you can see for yourself what Vicky Van was like. "How late you're going out," said Winnie, as I slithered into my topcoat. "It's after 11. "Little girls mustn't make comments on big brothers," I smiled back at her. Win was 19, and I had attained the mature age of 27. We were orphans, and spinster Aunt Lucy did her best to be a parent to us. And we got on smoothly enough, for none of us had the temperament that rouses friction in the home. "Across the street?" Aunt Lucy guessed, raising her aristocratic eyebrows a hair's breadth. "Yes," I returned, the least bit irritated at the implication of that hair-breadth raise. "Steele will be over there, and I want to see him." This time the said eyebrows went up frankly in amusement, and the kind blue eyes beamed as she said, "All right, Chet, run along." Though I was Chester Calhoun, the junior partner of the law firm of Bradbury and Calhoun, and held myself in due and consequent respect, I didn't mind Aunt Lucy's calling me Chet, or even, as she sometimes did, Chetty. A man puts up with those things from the women of his household. As to Winnie, she called me anything that came handy, from Lord Chesterton to Chessy Cat. I patted Aunt Lucy on her soft old shoulder, and Winnie on her hard young head, and was off. True, I did expect to see Steele at Vicky Van's. He was the club chap who had introduced me there. But as Aunt Lucy had so cleverly suspected, he was not my sole reason for going. A bigger reason was that I always had a good time there, the sort of a good time I liked. I crossed the street diagonally, in defiance of much good advice I have heard and read against such a proceeding. But at 11 o'clock at night the traffic in those upper side streets is not sufficient to endanger life or limb, and I reached Vicky Van's house in safety. It was a very small house, and it was the one nearest to the Fifth Avenue corner, though the long side of the first house on that block of the avenue lay between. The windows on each floor were brilliantly lighted, and I mounted the long flight of stone steps sure of a merry welcome and a jolly time. I was admitted by a maid whom I already knew well enough to say, "Evening, Julie," as I passed her, and in another moment I was in the long, narrow living room and was part of the gay group there. "Angel child!" exclaimed Vicky Van herself, dancing toward me. "Did he come to see his little old friend?" And laying her 2 hands in mine for an instant, she considered me sufficiently welcomed and danced off again. She was a will-o'-the-wisp, always tantalizing a man with a hope of special attention, and then flying away to another guest, only to treat him in the same way. I looked after her, a slim, graceful thing, vibrant with the joy of living.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?